All right. Look, I'm still just shocked. I keep seeing the feeds here on social media, on X and Facebook and Instagram and Getter and all these different places of just this it's just reprehensible behavior. You can't stand up and applaud a 13-year-old cancer survivor. Not one Democrat can shake the hand of the President of the United States as he walks in to deliver a speech to a joint session of Congress. Not one Democrat can applaud a 95-year-old mother whose son was just released from a Russian prison. Not one? Huh. And you think that's going to play? You think people are going to embrace that? Theresa Payton is the first ever female White House Chief Information Officer. She served under George W. Bush. She is the CEO of Fortalice Solutions now, and she joins me now. Theresa, nice to have you on the program.
Oh, it's great to be with you.
How remarkable, though, to see that not one Democrat would shake his hand. Not one Democrat would applaud for a 13-year-old cancer survivor. Instead, I see people like Nicole Wallace saying, I hope he doesn't commit suicide after an insurrection at the Capitol if he wants to be a police officer. Really? That's your take on a 13-year-old cancer survivor? I mean, it's grotesque, Theresa. Sorry, but it's just grotesque. We'll get into some other things, but what's your first reaction?
Well, so you may not know this, but when I was in college at Immaculata University, our dean of economics made it mandatory to watch every presidential speech, every State of the Union, and then we had to write an executive summary of what we took away, what
You've
was
seen them
notable,
all.
policy. Yeah, so and it's been a tradition in my family. I've watched them. I've watched all of them, every president since college, and a couple of things struck me. I've never seen. Um, like the level of disrespect was hard to fathom. And what's great about this country is we don't have to agree on everything, but we can agree to be respectful of each other's point of view and positions. And so that was a little challenging for me. It was a marathon of a speech. I think I was reading and looking into it, and it's one of the longest ones on record, and very high energy, a lot packed in there. But it was really hard to watch these guests of the speech not get 100% backing and applause when these guests were just it's not politics, it's people.
Right. It's one thing to dislike a policy. All right. So DOGE is something you've paid a lot of attention to. All right. If you don't like what they're doing, okay. I don't understand it personally. I think it's a great idea. We haven't seen a realignment like this in spending since Ronald Reagan, and this is much more significant than that because we finally have a way to go in and say, hey, we can track these dollars. We can use AI. We can use these young people who really understand these systems and figure out how this money is being spent or being spent inappropriately. All right, so you can oppose that. Don't have to applaud for that. But a 13-year-old cancer survivor, how do you not applaud that kid who gets his badge and holds it up? He's a little hero, for God's sake, isn't he?
Oh, what a sweet young man.
Right.
You could just see his big heart on the smile on his face. And yeah, that was really challenging because whether I agree with different politicians and their policies or don't agree, I've always just had tremendous respect for our elected officials and the work that they do to represent us. And so that was really challenging to see that. But I love America. I'm Team USA, and I do believe we can put some of that rhetoric behind us and focus on the path forward. And it doesn't take anything away from that young man. It's just disappointing to see.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about DOGE for a moment. Not everybody's in love with it. I am. I mean, spending $10 million for circumcisions in Mozambique, not the way I want to cut. The way I want to cut is get rid of bad spending, all right? I mean, tongue in cheek a little bit, but I mean, we are just spending money in places that we have no business spending money. USAID, which is the tip of a very big fraudulent iceberg, I think. What do you say?
Yeah, as a country, we're broke.
Yeah.
And just like businesses every day, if you don't have the revenue to support the expenses, you have to make tough decisions. Just like households have to make tough decisions. If you don't bring in the cash and your expenses outrun your cash, you have to make really tough decisions. And I do know that people's jobs and their livelihoods, really great people who serve in the U.S. federal departments and agencies, they are being impacted. And that human impact, it's hard to get past that. But we have to make these tough decisions just like businesses and just like households do every day. And hopefully, in the end, for those impacted, they'll move on to bigger and better and more awesome opportunities. And at the same time, we have to take the money that we collect in hard earned tax dollars and we have to spend it as wisely as possible on kind of today's modern age. And that's a tough thing to do, but reallocation, being more efficient is really key here.
Yeah, we need to. We are both. People say, "Well, you're the richest country in the world." Yeah, there's truth to that. We have the biggest economy, no question, Theresa. But as Donald Trump wrote in one of his books years ago, "I'm the poorest man in New York," and his wife said, "What do you mean?" "Because I have so much debt, I am the poorest man in New York City." And I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but we are the poorest nation in the history of nations. At 36, $37 trillion of debt, we are by far the poorest nation on the planet. Now, can we correct it? I don't actually know. I don't know if anybody knows if we can correct this problem, Theresa, but we have to start somewhere, and we start with DOGE, don't we?
We do. And what I would tell everybody is we need a combination of grit and grace. So we need grit to make these tough decisions around expenses. And then we need grace for the human impact. And we need a path forward. So we need sort of an off ramp and an on ramp to the new thing. So off ramp of old expenses, old things that no longer serve us, but an on ramp to things like building chips here in America and putting Americans to work, building tomorrow's technology. So there's a lot of things that if we can have both grit and grace, that we are going to be able to turn things around and turn things around for the better.
Yeah. Got to get things going the other direction. Theresa Payton, greatly appreciate you being here. You come back anytime. Enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much.
It was great to be with you. Be safe out there.
Yeah, be safe out there. That's a good bit of advice. Thank you, Theresa. Greatly appreciate it. Still to come, we're going to check in with Brock Palmbush. Of course, in the next hour, we've got Ron Rademacher for a bit of a midweek reprieve. It's all ahead here on the Steve Gruber Show. Fight the good fight. We'll be right back.